What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and we are heading into Week 10 of the 2020 college football season. The Pac-12 about to start play. Also, the MAC this week. It's now going to really feel like a normal college football season outside of the, missing the fans, of course. But we're going to update our top 25 now after a pretty crazy weekend in college football. We saw some pretty big upsets. We saw some games that were closer than we might have expected. Just a lot going on this past weekend, and I am not ranking the Pac-12 teams just yet. I want to see them play at least one game before I'm going to rank them. It's hard to compare a team that has played 5 or 6 games and a team that hasn't played at all. I don't think you can I just don't see how you can rank teams in that scenario. It's already hard enough to rank the Big Ten teams because they've only played, well, now they played 2 games, most of them, but some of them, last week it only played one, all of them, and only played 1 game last week. So it's hard to rank these teams. Again, we're still kind of learning about some of those teams, especially in the Big Ten. Obviously, Michigan is a team we learned a lot about that we didn't realize in week 1, or in their week 1. So anyways, let's get into the top 25 here, and we're going to go 21 through 25 here. I have Texas, Auburn, and Oklahoma back in the top 25. These teams all were preseason top 25 teams and had a little bit of a rough stretch, but it feels like all 3 of them, especially Oklahoma and Auburn, have turned the corner. Now, Texas didn't play especially well against Oklahoma State, but it was a gutsy win. They were able to make some big plays, get some turnovers, hang around in the game to where they could make a run late, force overtime, and then, of course, win it in overtime. So that was a big win for Texas. I still think this team is underperforming. I think they had the talent this year to win the Big 12. I don't know if that's going to happen now. Don't even know if they'll get to the Big 12 championship game. But still, there is a lot of talent on this roster, and if they can get it figured out, Texas could be a dangerous team down the stretch. And really the same thing with Oklahoma. They really turned the corner, I think, in the second half of that Texas game, especially Spencer Rattler. I think he really grew up in that game, and we finally saw him show what he's capable of, and I think just mentally he kind of got over that hurdle. And now Oklahoma and Texas might be the 2 best teams in the Big 12. I know it's crazy to say that as bad as they played there for a little while, but I think once these teams reach their potential, I think they're right there at the top of the Big 12 now, because they've already lost a couple of games. Who knows if they'll even make it to the Big 12 championship game. But this is a big win for Texas, and Oklahoma taking care of business against Texas Tech in a season where it seems like every Big 12 game is close. I know they should beat Texas Tech, but the way they were able to dominate that game, that was really impressive. Auburn, same thing. Auburn dominates against LSU. It seems like they've started to kind of turn the corner, kind of get back to running the football, and the defense against LSU, that's the best the defense has played all year. If they can continue to play like that, Auburn becomes a really dangerous team down the stretch as well. Boise State 2-0. They've played a couple of decent teams there in the Mountain West. They've got a big one against BYU this weekend, actually Friday night. That is going to be a huge game, especially for BYU, really for both teams. It'll be their biggest game. So that'll be a big one Friday night. We'll learn a little bit more about Boise State. Northwestern has been a bit of a surprise. They're off to a 2-0 start. Nice win against Iowa. Early on, things were going against them, had a couple of turnovers, but they were able to battle back in that game, and that was a nice win. They're 2-0. I don't know how good this team is. Like I always say, you need 3 or 4 games to really evaluate these teams, but I think Northwestern is a very solid team. If Wisconsin can't qualify for the Big Ten championship game, if they miss a bunch of games or whatever, Northwestern could actually be the team that wins the Big Ten West. Also, Purdue is 2-0. West Virginia is a team I considered in the top 25. It's tough when we look at these teams that are fighting for those final spots in the top 25, but I did keep those teams in mind as well. But this is my 21 through 25. We go now to 16 through 20. Liberty at 6-0 at number 20. They continue to impress, and I think they're going to play Virginia Tech this weekend. They've also got NC State, Coastal Carolina. What if Liberty and Coastal Carolina face off late in the year? Both teams undefeated. That could be a huge game. But Liberty, yeah, they've been impressive. Number 20 in the country for me. Tulsa struggled this past weekend. I think Friday nights when they played, Thursday or Friday, I can't even remember now. But they didn't look great in that game, but they were able to win it. Teams have bad games, so I did drop them a little bit. Also, the loss for Oklahoma State kind of hurt Tulsa, because now that they didn't lose a close game to a top 5 team anymore. Now it's a team that's not even in the top 10. So Tulsa drops a little bit for me, but I still think they're a very solid team. SMU is at number 18 at 6-1. You know, that loss to Cincinnati now, I know they got blown out, but they hung in that game for a while, and all of a sudden Cincinnati looks really, really good. So yeah, SMU I think might still be a pretty solid team. Iowa State at number 17, they are 4-2. Louisiana I don't think is even ranked in the AP poll, which makes no sense to me. They beat Iowa State head-to-head. They have a better record. They're 5-1. Iowa State's 4-2. Their one loss came to Coastal Carolina, who is looking really, really good right now. And so I think you have to rank those teams in that order. Coastal Carolina, then Louisiana, then Iowa State. And speaking of Coastal Carolina, we have them all the way at number 13. Here's 11 through 15. I've got Indiana at number 15. They are 2-0. I think Penn State's a good football team. I think Penn State's probably one of the top 25 teams, but I just cannot rank a team that's 0-2. I just couldn't put Penn State in there, even though I think Penn State is better than some of the teams in this top 25. You know, it has to be a little bit about what you do. You have to earn these spots in the top 25. It's not just about who I think is better. It's a combination of both. It's a combination of who I think is better and also what the teams have done in terms of a resume. But Indiana is 2-0 now. They take care of business against Rutgers. They are number 15. They'll have a big game against Michigan coming up. And Michigan is interesting because I don't have them in my top 25 at all. I think they were in the AP poll maybe. I'm not even sure. But a lot of people, see, that's what I think people that do polls, they get hung up on. If a team loses, well, I'm going to drop them 10 spots or whatever. Like, if you look at Michigan this past weekend, there's no way to me that was a top 25 team. And you go back to the Minnesota game, Minnesota now does not look good. They were blown out, or not blown out, but they lost to Maryland, a team that got blown out in week 1. So to me, that win doesn't look as great. And Michigan, I don't think deserves to be in the top 25, even though I had them in my top 10 last week based off of that Minnesota game. That's why I say it's not just about moving teams up and down. It's a brand new top 25 for me. Every week I reevaluate the teams. And so for me, Michigan now outside the top 25 after that tough loss to Michigan State. Marshall is at number 14. They're 5-0. That win over App State, looking better and better as App State continues to play well. Coastal Carolina, though, number 13. Could this team run the table in a pretty good Sun Belt conference? You've got Louisiana in there. You got Appalachian State in there. Georgia Southern, they've already beat them. They're not bad. Some pretty good teams in that conference this year. And we really got to know the Sun Belt a little bit early in the year when these other conferences were not playing. I think that helps Coastal Carolina, helps their image. And I have them all the way at number 13. We'll see if they can continue to win. Oklahoma State drops out of the top 10. They're now at number 12. I think Oklahoma State was a better team than Texas. They just had some bad turnovers and some timely plays for the Longhorns got them the win. I still think Oklahoma State's a really good football team. I probably will still pick them to win the Big 12. Although they have to go on the road to play Oklahoma, that's going to be a tough one. So, you know, I think it's going to be tough for this team to finish with one loss. They might lose a couple games now. But I still think it's the best team in the Big 12. But watch out. Oklahoma and Texas definitely playing better, playing a little bit more confidence, especially Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is going to be really dangerous down the stretch. Miami at number 11. For me, they are 5-1. I know they lost to Clemson, and it kind of seems like we've forgotten about Miami. They played a bunch of games early. They were kind of out in front playing games before some of these teams, and now they've kind of slowed it down. They haven't played any big games or anything outside of that Clemson game. So I don't know. We're going to see what Miami looks like down the stretch. I think this is maybe the second or third best team in the ACC, but there's really it's hard to say right now. I want to see them play another top 25 type team. The win over Virginia now looks a little bit better after Virginia just upset North Carolina. So, yeah, I think Miami's a good football team. And here is 6 through 10. I've got Wisconsin at number 10. Obviously, they didn't play this weekend. I don't think they're going to be playing next weekend either. Tough to judge this team on that one game. But I'm going to just judge them on what I've seen, and I'll put them at number 10. Florida is at number 9 for me. Obviously, a big opportunity against Georgia coming up this weekend. That is going to be a big game there. BYU at 7-0. They continue to win that big test against Boise State on the road Friday night. We learned a lot about this BYU team in that game. Cincinnati just continues to impress. What a win. They blow out Memphis. Didn't expect that. I thought this game would be closer. They are playing with a ton of confidence, playing great on both sides of the ball. Cincinnati now looks like a team that might just be a playoff contender. if they can continue to win, watch out for them. Texas A&M was really impressive against Arkansas. I thought this game would be closer. And you look at the rest of the schedule for A&M, who's going to beat them? You know, LSU looks horrible right now. They've already played Alabama. Ole Miss has no defense. You know, Tennessee's not playing great. Auburn could be a huge game. Texas A&M and Auburn in that final weekend of the regular season, that's going to be a big one there. But the Aggies are a very dangerous team. They were a sleeper team for me. They're actually, and we go back to my preseason prediction, I picked them to make the college football playoff, losing one game to Alabama. That very well could happen. And it's starting to look better and better for the Aggies. I think they're the number 6 team in the country right now. And again, A&M, Cincinnati, BYU, these teams look very dangerous. Florida, if they can play better on defense, kind of like they did against Missouri, the Gators could have something to say about this thing. It's going to be an interesting race for that number 4 spot. I still think the top 3 are pretty solid: Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. I put Alabama up at number 1 this week just because they were so dominant, and Clemson struggled a little bit. Those teams are very close for me, but believe it or not, I actually think Ohio State's the best team in the country. I just haven't seen enough to know that for sure. So because they've only played 2 games, I'm not going to put them at number 1. But I really feel like Ohio State is the best team in college football right now. The defense has played surprisingly well. Justin Fields is really unstoppable. This offense, it's very dangerous. I think the Buckeyes have a great chance to win it all this year. Unless they get COVID, they have to miss some games or whatever. That could obviously derail them. But if they can stay healthy and avoid that, I think Ohio State could be the team to win it all. But Alabama, I think right now has to be number 1 just because they've played better their last few games, where Clemson's maybe struggled a little bit. I know they've had some guys out, obviously Trevor Lawrence and some guys on defense, but still, it's so close that it's one of those things that could change week in and week out. You know, Clemson goes out and beats Notre Dame easily, they're probably back to number 1. But Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they're the clear favorites. They're the clear top 3 teams in my opinion. Then you have Notre Dame and Georgia. I've finally bumped Notre Dame ahead of Georgia. Notre Dame is starting to play a little bit more consistent. They've got a couple of blowout wins, a little bit of a slow start against Georgia Tech, but you know, they could be looking ahead to Clemson a little bit. I think this Notre Dame team is starting to play at that level where they're getting close to being an elite team where they could maybe challenge Clemson. These top 3 teams, again, in a category by themselves, but Notre Dame's not too far behind, and I think Georgia's kind of in that same category with Notre Dame, but their offense really struggled this past weekend. It's like Stetson Bennett, ever since the second half of that Alabama game, he has lost some confidence or something. I don't know what's going on exactly with Georgia, but they struggled there on that side of the ball. Maybe they're looking ahead to Florida. I have no idea what it is. That's going to be a huge game, Georgia versus Florida. So Georgia could maybe bounce back into the top 4 if they can win that game, because obviously between Clemson and Notre Dame, one of those teams is going to lose, and that could put Georgia back into the top 4. But just based off of how the teams are playing recently, I think Notre Dame has a little bit of an advantage. I've got them at number 4, Georgia at number 5. So that's my top 25 this week. I would love to know what all of you think about it. Give me your top 25, what you like or dislike about mine. Anything you want to add, feel free to do that down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.